Think about it. 3 years, maybe more, of studying, tens of thousands of pounds in debt, and absolutely no guarantee of a job when you're done. It's the path millions of us take every single year. So today, we're going to strip away all the tradition, all the emotion, and look at higher education through a totally different lens, as a financial investment.
Okay, let's just get right into it with the big, uncomfortable question up front. Is university actually a waste of time for the majority of people who go? I mean, really? Or is that just a convenient thing to say for people who choose a different path? Let's take a hard look at the return on this very, very expensive investment.
So let's reframe this whole conversation. For the next few minutes, stop thinking of university as a rite of passage or just the next step. Let's start treating it like what it actually is, one of the biggest financial decisions you will ever make in your life.
Just let that number sink in for a second. £50,000. That is the average debt a student in the UK is saddled with the day they graduate. For so many, it's the very first major financial event of their adult lives, and it starts them off deep in the red.
So let me put it to you this way. Imagine an advisor came to you with an investment. It cost 50 grand, but they told you they absolutely cannot guarantee any return on it. Would you do it? Would you take that deal? Well, that's basically the core question we need to answer here.
All right, so let's start by building the case against university, looking at this purely from a return on investment standpoint. What are the risks? What are the costs? What are the arguments that suggest, for a lot of people, this investment, it just doesn't pay off? This really gets at something called opportunity cost. While one person is spending 3 years studying and racking up debt, someone else, their peer, is out there getting 3 years of real-world experience, potentially earning £60,000 or more and building serious career momentum. And that 3-year head start isn't just about the money, right? We're talking about experience, building a professional network, maybe even getting a promotion or two. In today's job market, trying to close a 3-year gap like that, well, that can be a massive challenge.
And then there's the whole question of skills. Look, university is fantastic at teaching academic theory, frameworks, how to write an essay, but look at what the modern workplace is often crying out for. Sales skills, negotiation, knowing how to manage money, practical, real-world communication. Is there a growing mismatch between what's being taught and what's actually needed on day one of a job?
This brings us to a really crucial, kind of sharp point. What does a degree actually signal to an employer today? Does it really prove that a candidate is competent, that they're capable, or does it just show that they're good at following instructions and hitting deadlines for 3 years? In other words, are we talking competence or just compliance?
But of course, that is only one side of the coin. To have a fair discussion, you have to look at the powerful arguments for higher education. So let's flip it around now and see how the case for university builds up.
And let's be absolutely crystal clear on this. This whole debate, it isn't about every single degree out there. It would be ridiculous to argue that someone who wants to be a surgeon or an architect shouldn't go to university. This discussion is about the majority of degrees, where the career path isn't quite so direct. For professions like these, medicine, law, you name it, a degree isn't just an advantage, it's a non-negotiable requirement. The return on investment is pretty clear. Our focus is on all those other paths where the return is much, much less certain. Now, here it is. This is the single biggest statistical argument in favor of going to university. The data, year after year, consistently shows that on average, graduates earn significantly more over their entire lifetime. The key word there, though, is average. Averages can hide a lot, and the real question is whether that extra earning potential is guaranteed or if it's starting to shrink. But hey, the value isn't purely financial, is it? People always say this. The network you build, the ambitious people you meet, the inspiring professors, the friends you make for life, that can be priceless. Those connections can open doors and create opportunities years, even decades after you've graduated. And for a lot of 18-year-olds, let's be honest, university provides this vital transition period. It's a structured, relatively safe place to gain independence and just figure out who you are, without the immediate, harsh pressures of the job market. For some, that space is absolutely essential for their personal growth. So you've got these really strong arguments on both sides. And that kind of suggests the real issue here might not be whether university is good or bad, but why so many of us treat it as the automatic default next step without ever doing this kind of analysis. Let's be real for a second. This decision is rarely made in a bubble.
There are immense pressures from all sides, from our parents, from schools that are judged on their university acceptance rates, and from a society that just generally praises having a degree. And of course, there's that simple fear of being left behind when all your friends are going.
This really just cuts right to the heart of it. A decision this huge, this expensive in both time and money, it has to be driven by a clear purpose. If you're only going because it's what's expected of you, you could be making a very costly mistake.
Ultimately, you see, there is no single right answer for everyone. The return on investment for university is deeply personal. It totally depends on you, the course you choose, and what you want to achieve. So, the only verdict that really matters is your own.
So I'm going to leave you with a final thought experiment. For those of you who went to university, I want you to think back. Knowing everything you know now about your career, about your life, about that student loan balance, would you give your 18-year-old self the same advice? Would you tell them to sign on the dotted line and take on that debt all over again?
University is a waste of time for most people. Agree or disagree?